This is an historic day in Westchester County. And why? Because I believe that the current Board of Legislators is prepared for the first time to pass term limits legislation. I'm right now flanked by my colleagues, both John Nonna and Peter Harckham, two Democrats. I'm a Republican. This is a bipartisan legislation. This is something that I've tried to pass for the last 5 years on the board. And I really thank my two Democratic colleagues for joining me, in particular John Nonna, who happens to chair the Legislation Committee and has indicated that this is something that we will hear finally. It'll bring light to day. Again, as I said, this is representing bipartisan legislation, the northern portions of Westchester County, the southern portions of Westchester County. And what we're trying to do here is send a message. Last week we had an important historic election. And what we're hearing, election after election, is that people right now are disenfranchised from government. They're showing real displeasure with the elected representatives. They want to get away, I believe, from career elected officials. And instead they want to go to what I believe the founding fathers really wanted when they wound up putting our Constitution together. And that's that of citizen legislature, particularly on the lower level. We have term limits over in the city of Yonkers and in different pockets of Westchester County, but this is sending a strong signal to those people in Westchester County and throughout that we believe it should be in this area of local government also. And Westchester County has always taken a position of leadership throughout the state, and I believe this is just another step in that leadership. The legislation that's being proposed by the three of us seeks to limit the ability of a county legislator to serve more than 12 years. There might be some differences in the legislation between what I am proposing and what my colleagues might be proposing, in that I believe that the legislators should have 6 two-year terms, and we're now voicing whether we're going to go to 3 four-year terms, but we're all three of us united, whether we want to go to the 3 four-year terms or 2 6-year terms, we're all united in having term limits. And that discussion will take place among the Legislation Committee as to whether we're going to go and change the voting cycle or not. But in any event, this is, as I said before, historic legislation. It's been proposed in the past by various other boards, but never pursued to the degree I believe it's going to be pursued now. I've spoken with many of my colleagues on the board, and I believe most of them, if not all of them, are ready, willing, and able to pass this legislation. So with that, I want to turn to my colleague, John Nonna, who again is the chairman of the Legislation Committee. He joined me early on in this legislation, and I believe if it wasn't for John, his position within the Democratic majority and his position as chairman of legislation, that this wouldn't have seen light of day. So I thank Mr. Nonna again for joining me, joining Peter, to really do what I think is very good legislation for the people of Westchester County. John?
Thank you. The editorial writer John Lund once wrote, quote, "Asking elected officials to propose reforms that would limit their terms of office is like asking chickens to deliver themselves to Colonel Sanders," unquote. We're here today because we're not chickens. We are ready to move forward with an important proposal that has been considered in the past and unfortunately has not gone anywhere. The term limits goes way back in history to the Greek and Roman democracies. It also goes back to the Articles of Confederation. A number of our founding fathers were strong proponents of term limits for Congress, including Thomas Jefferson and George Mason, two of the signers of the Declaration of Independence. We're speaking today only about Westchester County, by the way. We're not purporting to tell our colleagues in state or federal government what their limits should be, but we believe in Westchester County the concept should be that of a citizen legislator, someone who has a job, who's in the county, who's part of the county population, working hard, takes time from their busy day to serve as a legislator and to give service to the county, and then steps aside and lets new blood, new perspective, new experience be brought to the task. One of the issues that's raised with term limits is that you will have inexperienced people coming to office. First, let me say that almost everybody on this board comes to the board with prior experience in municipal government or in a not-for-profit context. and dealing with issues that the county government faces. Secondly, we've struck a balance. We've provided for 12 years, which is certainly enough time for someone to come in, know the job, and make their mark and contribute to the county government. The companion legislation, which would extend the term of office of county legislators, is independent of the term limits legislation. We're prepared to move forward with term limits. 12 years, 12 consecutive years of service as a term limit. But we'd also like to consider extending the term to 2 to 4 years. So as legislator Burrows said, this can be a proposal for 6 terms of 2 years each, or 3 terms of 4 years. Why does 4 years make sense? Because once you're elected in a 2-year term, you're basically running for re-election the next day. And this would give someone an opportunity to get in office and actually make a record that the voters can make a decision on whether to continue that person in office. So it's always important that although we set a maximum limit of 12 years, remember the voters can always remove someone from office themselves. Unfortunately, the need for this is also dictated by the fact that our county elections have such little turnout. Most people don't even know who their county legislator is. The turnout is generally 25 to 30%. So we need a way for new perspectives to be able to come to government, and having term limits will achieve that goal. We're going to begin this discussion today at 1:30 at our legislation committee meeting, and hopefully move this legislation to the floor of the legislature. I'm going to introduce my colleague, Peter Harckham, who is also a sponsor of this legislation.
Thank you, John and Gordon. We didn't mention 4 3-year terms. Thank you all very much for coming. As Gordon and John both said, this is about returning a legislature to a citizen legislature. And it's really a very philosophical point of view that says our seats are held in public trust. They're not our seats. They're held by the people we represent. It's a privilege and an honor to hold these seats. But this is not about us. It's about public service to the communities that we serve. And 12 years is plenty of time to get accomplished what we need to accomplish. I came here, as did my colleagues, with a very specific agenda of things that I want to accomplish. And when those things are done, I'll move on. These seats are held in public trust. We should give up other people an opportunity for public service, for fresh ideas to come in, and a new perspective. So for me, it's quite simple. It's a philosophical point of view that says these seats are held in public trust. They're not ours. We're here to serve, then to move on. I look forward to this legislative process, and as my colleagues have said, there's still room for discussion on some of the details, but I think we're united on 12 years. I tend to agree that I would prefer to see 3 4-year terms, simply because in a 2-year term, the second you're elected, you're thinking about re-election. And there is so much work here to be done. We need to be here working. We need to be with our constituents working. We shouldn't be out having to raise funds and doing the things that are necessary for that part of the job. So we agree on the bottom line. We'll collaboratively move forward on this. We'll try and build consensus with our colleagues, but we're here to say that we agree on the fundamentals of returning to a citizen legislature. Thank you.
Any questions at this point in time? Or?
Yes.
Jerry?